Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look into council zoning and policy requirements, just so we can have a bit of a think about, what council are going to let us do as far as subdivisions go. First thing I usually do is just familiarise myself with the area again of where the address is and where it's located. And one way to try and work out what council area it may be is to go in something called, I call it the property location browser, because that's what it puts in the top section there. But basically you go to the website maps.sa.gov.au and you type in the address of the property you're looking at. So on this one, Street West Seaton, click on that. And I can zoom in a little bit further. There's heaps of different ways to try and work out where the council zoning is. I just use this one because it gives me some other information which I find interesting. But you can basically just see here, we've got the info button here, click on that, and then assuming we've got the right property, so I suppose just get on Google Earth and have a look around, just make sure you're picking up the right property. You click on it there, and you'll see it actually comes down with a little bit of information. It doesn't actually tell us what council it's in, but if we come in the drop-downs box here, it's got City of Charles Sturt. So there's some extra stuff in here which you may or may not find interesting. It's got the postcodes and the wards and the council regions and all those sort of things. Probably not particularly important as far as council doing subdivisions go. So this particular example, we're just really looking in to see what council it's in, and so it's City of Charles Sturt. So the next stage after that, we would then just Google City of Charles Sturt development plan, and it popped up. And so then you just come here and click on it. Hasn't come up very well. Let's try again. City, that we could do it in that way, and it would come up eventually. City of Charles Sturt development plan. We'd have to actually go in there and find it. Whereas one of these ones here will actually come up with the PDF Charles Sturt development plan. Click on that one, and it'll just pop up. It actually is a pretty big file, so it might take a little while to download for you. While that's downloading, I'll just show you the other option. If it did actually go in here, you'd have to go into the actual council itself and then go in and try and find the development plan. So here it's got the development forms and information guide, or see here it says development plan policy. So the only reason I'm not showing that example way of trying to find it is the danger is that every single council has it located at different spots. So I've just gone here and downloaded the PDF. You see it's 657 pages. So sometimes it'll come here with an index down the side here, or the index up here, front cover, general section, overlay, a whole pile of different things here. So what we're trying to do is trying to find the things that matter to us. In particular, the first thing I'd want to do is just try and work out what policy area is and what zoning it's in. And so the way we try and do that is, the way I do it, obviously the easy way to do it, to be honest, is just ring up the council, and now we know which council it is. Say, we just ask them what zone it's in and what the policy area is, and they'll actually give you a whole pile of information about this potential to subdivide. They'll tell you the minimum block size and the frontage and a whole pile of different stuff. The reason I'm showing you how to do it this way too is because you might want to do that, ring them up initially and just ask them some questions, but just to double check, because the danger is that you never know, you might be ringing up someone and they might not have the qualifications to be able to tell you the correct answers, or they've just made a mistake. And obviously if you go and buy a property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars based on someone's information they've given you over the phone, the danger is to get yourself in a bit of trouble, basically. So what I usually do, I usually just download the development plan myself and just come in here and have a bit of a look. We've actually got the map reference table, so you can see here. If you click on that, council index map. So we'll actually be able to find where the zoning is ourselves, just purely by looking at the development plan. And so if we go back to our property location browser report here, we zoom out a bit. If you know your area fairly well, you'll actually be able to say, okay, well, I know where it's located, and you'll be able to match it via that. It is a relatively time-consuming way of trying to work out what the zoning is, but it is important just to make sure we don't make any mistakes. And when we're talking some serious cash, you don't want to get yourself into trouble. So we can see here, this is where the city is. This is Port Road here. This is Tapley's Hill Road. And we know it's just off of Trimmer Parade. So it's somewhere between Clark Terrace, Tapley's Hill Road, Trimmer Parade, around that sort of area. So where we're going, having a look at this map here, we can start to try and take a bit of an estimate of where this might be. So we know that's the city there, that's Port Road coming down there, and then we can zoom in a little bit. Let's get here. That's Tapley's Hill Road, that's the Clark Terrace. And so this one might actually be on the border of a couple of these different maps. We've got this one here it could be in, or it could be in this one here, or it could be up here, it could be up here, because somewhere around here, we go back and looking at the, it's right up around here, so it's right near the border of the two maps. So I'm guessing it's probably in this one, so we're going to click on that one. It'll actually automatically take us back down to exactly where it's located. And we know it was on the corner of Tapley's Hill Road, and there we go, Min Street West. And so we know it's just there, located there. What I've done is I generally just download the separate sections for me to have a look at. So I've just come in and download these maps already, development plan maps. So the first map we're looking at here is, what's it actually called here? Just a location map. So it just tells us where everything's located. So not anything particularly interesting there. Local reserves, railways, schools. Next one is transport. And the reason why this is important, if you're on a main road, they've got, see that bright red one, or they got the orange one there. So that's secondary arterial road. If you're a primary arterial road or a secondary arterial road, then someone like Transport SA or the Transport Authority would have a lot of influence over whether they're going to let you do a subdivision or not, because they don't want a lot of new access points coming into their main roads, because it just creates more complications for them. So we can see here's the main road here, Tapley's Hill Road, but we can see Min Street West is not a main road. So hopefully that won't be an issue. That's transport. What's the next thing they've got here? Here they've got development constraints. So again, just to have a look here, see if there's anything that's going to cause a problem. You can see here there's some constraints there, but where we are, Min Street West, no issues there, so that's all good. And here we have overview map of heritage. So looking at any heritage sites around the area. No. See one there's got a little dot point. So that means it's a state heritage place. And then this one here that's all grayed out, that's a contributory area to the heritage area. So just something you might have to think about, but we know we're right up here. So we don't have any particular issues with heritage. Next thing we're looking at is the zoning. So if we go back up again and look at we're in this brownie looking colour, and what is that zoning? That zoning is R. So that we look down here, and that's residential zoned. So remember we looked at them before, that had when we looked at heritage, and that was contributing area for the heritage zoning. So that's why the actual zoning is different. It's residential character. But we know we're in the residential zone, so we know straight away that we're in the residential zone. Next thing here we've got is policy areas. So sometimes, you can see this particular area here, it's not shaded in at all. So there's no particular policy area for this area here, whereas the area we're in just here, it's all in that blue colour. And the blue colour extends all the way down here, and it's number 16. So we're policy area 16, mid-suburban policy area 16. You can see if we were this area here, we'd be number 20, integrated medium density. And so there are different requirements, different zoning and policy area requirements for each of those different spots. And let's have a look what the next one is. And the next one is the precinct map. So having a look to see if there's anything we need to think about. So Seaton precinct, or the mixed use precinct, or the Grange precinct. And we're looking at a particular one there, and we're not in any particular precinct, so don't have to worry about that. And is there any other maps? No, that's it. So that's the first thing then. So we've gone through and had a look at anything that may be an issue. So the first thing we identified was that we're in the residential zone. So I've gone in, and you can work that out by going in here. You can actually use, if you're just on the website, go in here and look up zones, and then scroll through until you find what's called the residential zone. Adelaide Shore zone, a whole pile of different ones there. I've already gone in there and printed it out and kept it as a file here, so I've got it here already. And whoops, what is that? Come in here and pick that up. Residential zone. Okay, so if we're scrolling down here, so the way it works is there's the general development plan guidelines, which will have a whole pile of different rules and things we need to consider. And then there's the zoning requirements, which will have a whole pile of rules which we need to consider. And there'll be the policy requirements, which will have a whole pile of rules we need to consider. So generally what happens is it's the policy area takes precedence over the zoning, which are then going to take precedence over the general guidelines of the development plan. So first one we probably look at, I suppose, is probably the policy area, because that's probably, it takes precedence over everything else. So let's just have a look at that. So we can see development that contributes to the desired character area. So it's characterised by mixed dwelling types, detached, semi-detached, with a wide range of medium density housing. So the reason we want to think about this is this may have an effect on what type of development we may be able to do. Because obviously if it's saying low density housing and we want to do a high density housing, then our chances, you know, they've told us what they want in that area, so we know it's going to be less of a chance of trying to achieve our goal. So I would have a bit of a read through there to see what the general vibe is. And then they've come in here and given us some extra information. So they've come in and told us what the minimum block size, if we want to subdivide, whether we're talking detached or semi-detached or group dwelling or row dwelling. In the future, I'll go through some of this in a bit more detail, things you need to consider when you're doing a subdivision on what some of these zoning and different types of dwellings are. But for an interim, we just, you know, detached means a house that's not attached to another house. Semi-detached means a house that's attached to another house. And row dwelling means, you know, 3 houses which are attached to each other. I suppose you can just take that as a bit of a guideline for now. So we can see the minimum block size is 400 square metres to subdivide for detached and 350 for corner sites, or 300 for semi-detached. We can see here the frontage is 10 metre frontage for detached or 8 metre for semi-detached. And so that's pretty much all it tells us as far as the policy area goes. So you can see the policy area is not a lot of information because it's really specific to that small particular area. And then if we go to the next general level is residential zoning. So we can come in here and have a look at some of the things they're talking about. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because every suburb and every particular house is going to have different policy area and zoning requirements. But if you have a look down here, so it might be worth having a reading of what's possible and what's not possible. Non-residential is telling you what you can't do, the character of the area, what you have to do as far as fencing goes. And it does separate some of the different policy areas off here. It's given us the example of building envelope requirements. And that's pretty much all it's given us in there. So again, it hasn't given us a huge amount of information. So we've already looked at the council maps. And then, so then besides that, really it's just about looking at the whole development overall, really, development plan overall. So if we're looking in the general section, they've actually come in here and given us some useful things when you're looking at doing a subdivision. As far as general development plans, things to consider is design and appearance. I usually look at a bit. They've got a guide here on land division, so design and layout, road access, talking about landscaping, fencing, walls. You know, if you're going to do a more densely populated subdivision, you know, things you need to consider there, medium high-rise developments, talking about regulated trees. We've got another section here on residential development, design and appearance, site coverage, private open space. So it just gives you some general information if you're looking at doing a development in that particular area. Give them information on significant trees, siting and visibility, sloping land. They're probably the most important ones, you know. But remember, this is the general stuff. The thing we need to think about mainly is focusing on the policy area, and then secondly is the zoning, which in this example was residential zoning. So what does that actually mean? So in this example here, we're in policy area 16. So we know the minimum block size for detached is 400 square metres for our particular one, because we were on a corner with a 10 metre frontage, and 300 square metres for semi-detached. So that's what I wanted to give you today, just how to go in there and firstly pull out the development information, the policy area and the zoning, and how to download the report. And from there, we'll start to analyse in a bit more detail and yeah, hopefully get you out there, start analysing projects.